Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Welcome aboard. Could not be happier to have you. And could not be happier to have our good friend Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network, as sports do not take holidays. And a lot of action over the weekend. Greg, Friday, before we got out of here, I was fortunate to have Pat Graham and Sharon Wilkerson on the show because they were playing Saturday in a matchup between Evansville Memorial and Jeffersonville. And then Friday night, I know Trent Sisley had a big night, 32-10 in a 1-point win for Heritage Hills over Evansville. Actually, it was Evansville Memorial. Pat's at Evansville Harrison now. Getting those confused. He was at Evansville Memorial last year. Can't even need a scorecard. But fun stuff going on. How are you, my friend?
I am good. I got a rare Sunday off because of the Colts playing on Saturday, which of course made Saturday like one of the busiest sports days ever in downtown Indianapolis and seemingly across the state of Indiana, and enjoying a little bit of a slower pace this week. And when I say slower pace, it means that I have 6 games in 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But until then, a little play-by-play rest for the voice until Thursday night.
That's always an enjoyable thing to get, especially this time of year. And like I said, Trent Sisley with a big, like a lot of Indiana for the Kansas game had a lot of potential recruits out there. 2 of the biggest names in the state. Trent was out there as one of those, but Jalen Harrelson out there as well, as they all had a Saturday night off. Malachi Moreno from down in Kentucky was there. But yeah, it was a Saturday just seemed like a day off for everybody except for me.
Saturday was a crazy day with obviously what was going on in Bloomington. Then with the Indy Classic butting up against the Indianapolis Colts, and again, to me, the biggest part of the Indy Classic wasn't the fact that Indiana State ran the record of 10-1 or that Purdue beat Arizona. The fact that this was the event that IU said, we don't need to be a part of this. And in year number 2, it sold out, which I thought was really good. It shows you the success that, Purdue has had as of late. Frankly, when it became, the thought was, hey, Purdue's going to bring somebody in, Butler's going to bring somebody in, and that's what this event is. And it's kind of turned into, hey, Purdue's going to be a part of it. Butler has kind of gone off and done their own thing. But they've turned to like Ball State and Indiana State to kind of help fill, my guess would be is that, if you're looking at Purdue only at Gamebridge, it's probably a similar number to Mackey, 10 to 12,000. And so the thought is, hey, bring in Indiana State and or Ball State, and that gets you that 5,000 or 6,000 difference that you're looking to fill it up. And maybe that isn't necessary. But again, because of the great year those 2 schools have had, particularly Indiana State being 10-1 at this point, that was really good to see. And I'm sure that the Purdue fans didn't mind seeing IU get beat in their own floor. Like any time, that's a good thing for Purdue people, but especially at the event that Indiana thought again was beneath them as of the last couple of years.
I think it wasn't beneath them. I think they had fallen behind. They're wanting to be back into that conversation of being among the elite. But of course, the first thing that you need to do is play like the elite. It doesn't matter where you play or how you or what event you play in. They're not playing up to that level. Period. But they wanted to bring in have home and homes like with people like Kansas and whatnot. I think. But that's such a great event. It's such a perfect event that it should. That is just something that, because of this state and all the talents it lies in, that Indiana should probably be participating in. But they've chosen to try to, I think, change it more to a national narrative.
Well, it's also good to play Harvard, on a random Sunday in that building instead of playing one of your in-state rivals. That's clearly the way to go, Jim.
Yeah, that was an exciting game, an exciting day for everyone.
Full house too.
Indiana is known as the Harvard of the Midwest. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep. You want to be elite, Perhaps win the Big Ten tournament. Perhaps make it past a round or make the NCAA tournament. Win a round or two in the NCAA tournament. Maybe that's how you be elite.
But it also does give more teams an opportunity to participate in that, like you said.
Which is such a magnanimous gesture by the Hoosiers. I'm sure Indiana State and Ball State are grateful for that. You can keep explaining away to your fan base all you want to, and it's great that it is wonderful they're playing Kansas at home and home. Okay, that's a wonderful thing. All right, it's wonderful they're playing Auburn the week before. It is great that they have finally said, you know what, if Kentucky, if we have to play a neutral site game to get you, those are all very good things. You could have still done all of those things and been a part of the Crossroads Classic. Yeah,
especially like you mentioned, a game like Harvard that is just not required, and it would have been a lot more fun going there for a weekend like that, as opposed to going up there for Harvard. I absolutely agree with you there. Indiana they're not where they need to be. As a program, they're still just searching for themselves, and I'm not sure where they're going. But they had a rough time with Kansas for certain. They had the lead for 35 minutes before they give that up, and then kind of, I don't want to say wilt, but in the last 3.5 minutes or so, that was the change for Kansas. They took over and imposed their will upon Indiana.
They did, but again, at the same time, while it's a disappointing loss, and Indiana University is not in the moral victory business, it was a significantly better effort than how they played against Auburn the week before. I'm not sure it could have been worse. But it is the thing that Indiana has in their back pocket, which is the same thing Purdue has in their back pocket in future years for Notre Dame. So they've got in their back pocket is that it's not like a game against Kansas where you led for most of the way but didn't win on your home court is going to cost you an NCAA tournament berth. You've got 18 more opportunities in Big Ten play. And as long as you're a borderline 500 team, you're going to make the NCAA tournament and give yourself a shot. So it's disappointing that you lose that lead. This is not an Indiana team we're talking about in terms of, hey, they're playing for a 1 seed or a 2 seed or a 3 seed. That's not this group. You're trying to play for a 10 or 11 or 12 seed. You're trying to avoid playing in the National Invitation Tournament if you're Indiana. So this win would have helped you, but you got a chance for 15 more quality wins the rest of the way. You got plenty of time if you're Mike Woodson and company to figure this out.
Yeah, let's talk about how about Indiana State and the start that they're having. I mean, they don't get a lot of talk time, and that start hasn't been under the radar, but I think it's just been let's wait and see, and it keeps going.
Correct. I mean, they're a really good team, for their level. And again, you see less and less of the games from Big Ten schools versus Valley schools. Indiana State kind of resides in this in between. In one sense, it's a very good thing for college basketball fans that there are more games of Indiana versus Auburn and Indiana versus Kentucky. It's about to happen. Indiana versus Kansas, Purdue versus Arizona. But what you seemingly get then in maybe the 5 or 6 games that these schools play against non-Power 5 competition, you don't play teams in the Missouri Valley. Maybe you don't play teams in the American Conference. You're playing teams from the Horizon League. You're playing teams from the Summit League. You're playing teams from the Northeast Conference, which is going to let Chicago State in as a member next year. You're playing teams from the SWAC or the MEAC. Indiana State kind of lives in that in between. The term mid-major still gets used around, but it is so much more. Either you're a Power 5 or in basketball, you're a Power 6 or you're not. Just because the way the scheduling works, the one chance you have to do something about that is in the month of March. And so I say all that, Jim, for Indiana State's really good. And Robbie Avila can really play their center. They got Isaiah Swope to transfer from USI. He's a Castle kid. They got Ryan Conwell to come home from South Florida. He played at Pike, was an all-star a couple of years ago. He had 27 in the win against Ball State. The game to circle for Indiana State, they have Tennessee State coming in town, I think, tomorrow night. But they will play at Michigan State on December 30th before they resume Missouri Valley play. Indiana State's one loss is at Alabama, who probably isn't as good as they have been in years gone by. But there's the obvious tie-in of the 1979 national championship game, but it is their lone opportunity against a Big Ten school this year to say, hey, we got something special here. So basketball fans across the state, circle that date on your calendar. A week from this Saturday, Indiana State and Michigan State, you'll have a chance to see just exactly what this Indiana State team is all about, and we'll see if they can hang with the big boys in a one-off scenario.
And the Colts, we haven't talked about them much. A big win for them on Saturday because they were taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were both fighting for a wild card spot, and the Colts with an emphatic 30-13 win and keeps them right plugging along in that playoff line.
Yeah, Jim, it was their worst performance of the year the week before. It was their best performance of the year this week. And frankly, the history doesn't matter to the current players. It matters to the fan base. It's the first win against the Steelers in 15 years. The Colts have been in Indianapolis. This is their 40th season. You know how many times the Indianapolis Colts have beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jim? 4.
Wow.
84, 2005, 2008, and that one. Steelers had an 8-game winning streak against the Colts. And obviously, when it's the Steelers here, when it's the Steelers anywhere that's not Pittsburgh, it's Pittsburgh West or Pittsburgh South because there's 20, 30,000 Steelers fans there. And to see that group leave in the middle of the fourth quarter was pretty satisfying for the Indianapolis Colts. Other storyline from that game, Jim, was that it was the depth of the roster. No Jonathan Taylor for a third consecutive week with that thumb injury. And then Zach Moss gets hurt. And he scores a touchdown to make it 13-7, but he injures an arm in the process. And I hope it's not the arm that he injured. He broke his arm in training camp and missed the first game of the year. You hope it's not that injury. But Trey Sermon comes in, played at Ohio State. This is his third year in the National Football League. He had 223 career yards rushing in 22 games before Saturday night. He has 17 carries for 88 yards. Tyler Goodson played at the University of Iowa, was on the practice squad of the Green Bay Packers last year, had been elevated up off the practice squad for the last 3 weeks for the Indianapolis Colts. He has over 60 yards rushing. He has a carry of 31 yards. Then Michael Pittman gets hurt in the first half on a hit where he was ejected, or where the defender was ejected for the way he hit him from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pitt has been so solid all year. He had 4 catches and 72 yards in kind of limited time. So in comes DJ Montgomery. DJ played in the USFL for the Michigan Panthers this spring. DJ is 5 years removed from playing at Austin Peay. There is now, because of expanded practice squads and the XFL, USFL, et cetera, there kind of is this second tier of player who can actually, you're not making, generationally, wealth-changing money for your family. You can make a living kind of being a practice squad player in the National Football League. DJ's been one of those guys. This is his 5th year. He had 3 NFL catches before Saturday's game. And he dropped 1 touchdown and came back and had another one on the very next drive. So Saturday night was as good as it could be for the Indianapolis Colts. They get that win against the Steelers. They have now a tiebreaker against a potential playoff team. Thing is that nobody else in the playoff hunt kind of lost around the Colts this weekend. Bengals won, Browns won, Broncos did lose on Saturday night. They're a game behind the Colts. Texans won on the last play of overtime yesterday. And the Bills, despite playing a tough schedule, seem to have finally figured out, hey, they're a pretty good football team. So they, demolished the Cowboys yesterday afternoon. So Colts own the tiebreakers, or not, I shouldn't say Colts own the tiebreakers, but the Colts are currently, because of the Browns and Bengals being in as well, those are two teams they lose the tiebreaker with. They're the number 7 seed. They're also tied, along with Houston, with Jacksonville for the AFC South lead. The Jaguars hold all of the tiebreakers in those scenarios. So it's still less than 50-50, the Colts win the AFC South, but it's possible now. So simply put, Jim, I've said this all along. You've heard me say it to you. The Colts get to 10 wins, I think they're in. I know this. If they get to 11 wins, I know they're in, which means winning out their last 3 games starting this Sunday in Atlanta.
Well, they can certainly do it, and we hopefully we'll get to see that happening and follow you along the way. Make sure you follow Greg and follow the ISC Sports Network, a bevy of content on there as well. Greg, thank you, sir. We appreciate you as always.
Happy holidays, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll see you soon. Hey, Indiana Sports Beat, more coming up here with Don Fischer right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Good morning, Don.
Hi, John.
Hi, Don. How are you, sir?
Hi, Jim. I'm all right. Doing fine. Wonder if Tom Allen will tackle anybody on the Penn State sidelines.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to grab some coffee. I'll be right back.
Well, that's a great landing spot for him, but no surprise there. They've got a hell of an athletics director in Pat Kraft. He knows what he's doing, I think.
Pat Kraft is really, really good. No question about it. Oh. I think Signetti is doing a heck of a job.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. I couldn't believe he got Trent Allen back.
Yeah, how often do you get somebody who's already committed to someone else in the portal to take that back?
Yep. I think it's pretty impressive what he's done thus far. You don't know how these transfer portal guys that he's recruiting, the Rourke kid, Wedding out of Wisconsin, Ellison out of Wake Forest, you don't know how good they will be, but based on his track record, he doesn't recruit guys he doesn't think can play. And he's got the 3 freshmen from James Madison that are coming. I think he's gotten virtually everybody that he liked that was a part of the freshman class that Allen and his coaching staff were going to bring in. I think he got all those guys that he thinks can play recommitted. So he's just doing. I mean, I think he's got 16 freshman commits now. So anyway, it looks good.
All right, guys, here we go.
Club at Eagle Point students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Hope you're having a happy holiday season. Please welcome in Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, and good and bad weekend for Indiana. Good for Kurt Cignetti and everything he's getting done, and of course Indiana with a tough loss at home against Kansas on Saturday, and an incredible atmosphere. And a game that they led for 35 minutes, Don, and really it didn't go away until about three and a half minutes to go. But Kansas was able to just hang around after being down by 13 and come back and do the things they needed to do at the end of that game to win.
Well, they did, without question. Kansas is a really good ball club. I'm not sure they're the number 2 ranked team in the country, or should be, but they are certainly a top 10 ball club. Bill Self does a phenomenal job as a basketball coach. We all know that. But at the same time, I thought Indiana played really well in this ball game. I thought it was their best performance against a quality team. And not to say that they haven't won some ball games that were important. Obviously, the Michigan-Maryland games in the Big Ten to start the season in that regard was really important. But of all the teams that they played at this point, you'd say UConn was probably the best, and Kansas was probably the second best, Auburn being the third best, and Auburn kicked their butt. So my feeling is the bounce back from that Auburn loss a week ago Saturday, and the effort that they put into this ball game was really a key. And the fact that they were competitive in this game, competitive throughout the contest and led for a good portion of it, was such a big improvement for this ball club. Unfortunately, they didn't get it done at the end. You can say fatigue had a factor in it, but the fatigue was the same for Kansas as it was for Indiana, because those guys play a ton of minutes without the bench playing very many minutes at all. In fact, I think Kansas had, 6 bench points? Indiana had 3 bench points. So the bench didn't factor in, with the exception of maybe defensively at all in this ball game for Indiana from an offensive standpoint. So I give this ball club a lot of credit for the bounce back, for the effort that they put forth, the competitiveness that they showed. And to me, that was maybe the most important thing that came out of this ball game, is that they competed like crazy. And a big part of that was because Indiana's crowd was just spectacular. I mean, you don't have the students there. They're home for Christmas, that type of thing. You've got all these fans that are bringing their kids. Don't get to see all that many basketball games at IU because they're not season ticket holders, and they can't get season tickets. And this mini package that they put together that allowed fans to come and see this Kansas ball club. Well, the fan base that's the true Hoosier Nation right there that you saw on Saturday. These guys and gals and their children that came to this ball game. It was just fun to see that group provide so much adrenaline for this Indiana basketball team.
Absolutely. It was an incredible environment. They even got the candy stripe sections worked out. I couldn't believe that they got them worked out. I'm like, daggone, they got it to work. And it looked, the arena looked amazing. Simon Scott Assembly Hall looked pretty cool. That was a really good looking sight. The crowd it was definitely a tournament atmosphere and a great game between two behemoths. But Kansas is able to pull away toward the end. And I know they want to talk about fatigue, but Kansas actually had 4 guys that played 36 minutes or more. Indiana only had 3. That was probably because of some foul trouble between McKenzie Mbako and Renew. But at the end of the day, those guys are out there on the floor as well, and they were able to get it done.
Yeah, and you got to give Kansas credit. They're just a smart basketball team. And Dickinson, of course, has helped them immensely. A guy of his size and experience level. He was second leading scorer on their ball club with 17. He had 14 rebounds in the game. I thought Khalil Ware handled himself very well in this contest. He had 15 rebounds himself, only 11 points in the ball game. He struggled shooting the basketball, but he was double and triple teamed almost the entire ball game. They were going to take him away for sure. And Malik had foul problems and got himself into. And again, some of those fouls that Malik commits sometimes are just silly fouls. He's got to get smarter in that regard. Kind of a bull in a china shop sometimes in that regard. He's got to just get smarter out there on the floor. But at the same time, you can't take anything away from what Trey Galloway was able to do in this ball game. He was spectacular. 28 points, a career high, slash to the rim. I can't remember how many times he went right to the rim and scored the basketball. He played fearlessly. He knocked down 2 threes in the game out of 4 attempts, which is huge because we haven't seen him shoot the 3 ball at all this season. He's made, I think it was 3 for 14 coming into the game, something like that. From the 3-point line, wasn't taking very many because I think his confidence was shot in that regard. Well, not in this ball game. He knocked down 2 big threes that were critical in the contest. So I like what I saw from Indiana for the most part. They just didn't finish this ball game, which is going to be an ongoing problem for them if they can't. They've got to find ways to win, and they have won some games this year that were, late in the contest. But against a quality team, against a team like Kansas or a team like Auburn or a team like UConn, Indiana doesn't have many of those kinds of games left on their schedule this year, and it's going to be a problem when it comes to NCAA tournament time.
Absolutely. It was their last opportunity for a quality non-con win. Now you're going to have to look towards the Big Ten Conference, which that's been a little shaky other than Purdue. We don't know who is really good in the Big Ten yet. But I also, the defense being played on Saturday, especially Trey Galloway. We talk about him on the offense, the career day he had there. Man, he was playing really, really good defense. And he just did a phenomenal job on both ends of the floor. And to see him do that takes a lot of energy. But yeah, man, he gave it all on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think that energy, in his case specifically, I think he was wore out at the end of that ball game. He made 2 or 3 passes that were uncharacteristic turnovers at the end of the ball game. Late, and again, I just think he was just out of gas because he was playing so hard at both ends of the floor for the entire contest. I like what I see from Gabe Cupps. I mean, this kid's playing really, really well. Not shooting the ball like you would like at this point, but he does all the right things. He still plays hard at the defensive end. He keeps the guys in front of him. He makes them work for everything that they get. And he handles the basketball almost flawlessly. I think he had 1 turnover in this ball game in 37 plus minutes of playing time. You just got to like this kid. He's going to be a major factor for Indiana for a long time to come. But then there's the elephant in the room too, and that's Xavier Johnson, who is still not playing at this juncture of the season. And could he have helped Indiana in a couple of these ball games? I hope to kiss a pig. I mean, yeah. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Xavier in a ball game like this against a team like Kansas would have been a major factor in the contest, whether it was scoring or defense or whatever. But he would have helped Indiana a lot. The bench did nothing in this ball game. I mean, Anthony Walker, I thought, played okay in his playing time out there, and Caleb Banks did as well. But neither one gave him much offensively in the game. So at any rate, when you look at the whole of this contest, the thing that came out of it that was most impressive for me was how competitive they were in a game against a really good basketball team. And it shows you that they can make that kind of an effort if they put their heads on straight. And unfortunately, they didn't against Auburn. They certainly didn't play great against UConn. Again, I think that was earlier in the season when you're still learning everything. But at the same time, right now, they've got to start a winning streak here in Big Ten play when it starts up along after the 3 games that they better win leading up to that. They've got to get a winning streak going in the Big Ten to become a factor for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Kurt Cignetti and the football team program are doing an unbelievable job. We keep seeing these commitments coming. And the one that's most impressive to me right now is Trent Howland. I thought he was gone. The running back, Trent Howland, and now you see that he's back in the fold. He's coming back to Indiana, and Cignetti is doing a hell of a job selling.
There's no question. In many ways, he reminds me a little bit of Terry Hepner.
I knew you were going to say that. I just felt
he does. I mean, he's got this aura about him that people like. I mean, he's not afraid to say what he thinks. He's succinct about it. He doesn't go off on. I mean, he handles himself really well, and I think what he's done here in the recruiting of the portal guys, getting the guys back to Indiana that had committed to the portal from IU, Donovan McCulley, to me, along with Howland, those two are the biggest recruiting jobs that he's had so far to pull off, and he's done it. Carter Smith and Jordan Greer are two other guys he's got back out of the portal, and there may be more here in the next couple of weeks. We'll have to wait and see on that. Then going the actual portal itself to get players, Curtis Rourke, the Ohio University quarterback, who was the MAC Player of the Year, I think, in 2022, then torn ACL, or was that 2021? Anyway, he tore an ACL, and then he came back again this past year and played really, really well for Ohio University. This is a guy that should help Indiana, a sixth-year player that will be a factor as a quarterback, unless he gets beat out by one of the other quarterbacks that have been on campus or will be on campus, because you're going to have a freshman, I guess, from James Madison that had committed to James Madison, this Alberto Mendoza that had committed, and they like him a lot, but I think he's probably got a lot to learn. All that said, what this guy is doing at this juncture to help this football program and to excite this football program, to me, has been tremendous.
Absolutely. But not only that, it is injected that is falling over to the fans. Things just by things that I post, I can tell the football didn't move the needle a lot, because this is a basketball school. It's been known as a basketball school, but now it is the opposite. You put something out about the football, and people are paying attention. They are starving for a winning football program in Indiana. And I know that people have used the phrase the sleeping giant. I don't know about the giant part, but I know for a fact there is a sleeping program about to erupt. If Kurt Cignetti gets this thing going, you will not see an empty Memorial Stadium like we are so used to.
I agree with that. And like I said, this guy reminds me a little bit of Hep. I think he's got that kind of aura about him. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the recruiting aspect of it plays out here. But the way he's got it going right now is such a positive. And I think the fans feel that. The true diehard Indiana fans are going to love this guy. And I think the rest of the Hoosier Nation that, kind of, oh, okay, it's football, that kind of feeling, I think that's going to change, because I think he's bringing an excitement and a level of buzz that we haven't seen in Indiana football in some time, to say the least.
And on a little sad news to pass along, Eric Montross, former player here in the state at Lawrence North High School with Todd Leary, and then at North Carolina, of course, has passed away at 52 due to cancer. And I remember seeing him when Indiana played North Carolina here, part of their radio network. I'm sure you dealt with him in that capacity, much less in many others.
It's just shocking. Eric Montross, such a nice man, on top of everything else, a great high school basketball player, as you said, with Todd and at Lawrence North High School. Tremendous player at North Carolina, was a part of their broadcasting team. And I've talked to Eric every time Indiana's played them. Just a great young man, and now he's gone. And it's shocking to me. I heard that he had cancer, but I didn't realize it was this significant. And I just feel so bad for their family, because this guy was a terrific young man. And I say young, because to me, everybody's young, but you know what I'm saying.
And this comes on the heels of Indiana, the state of Indiana, losing George McGinnis, who is just one of the absolute, he's probably a Mount Rushmore without question in this state, a player that just, you talk about a talent. he was all that and more, and also just as nice as anyone you'll ever meet.
Right. There's no question about it. Big Mac goes into the Indiana Athletics Hall of Fame this past September. I had the pleasure of announcing or hosting that and being a part of the dais that night and introducing him as one of the next Hall of Fame members. And he, I've known Big Mac since the ABA days because I came here in 1973, and he was a part of those ABA teams that won ABA championships back in that era. Watched him play. I never saw him play as a high school player, but I certainly saw him on television when I was in Terre Haute, when he was down at Indiana University at that time. I watched that one-handed 25-foot jump shot that he would put up there. It was unbelievable what he was doing as a college basketball player in his first varsity season and only varsity season at Indiana, because at that time freshmen could not play college basketball. They were on a freshman team, but they could not play the varsity. So George McGinnis played 2 years at Indiana, but one was only as a freshman on a freshman team, and then his second year as a sophomore, 30 points and 15 rebounds. Absolutely a phenomenal basketball player. And then to watch him in the ABA and then the NBA, what a tremendous performer he was. And it's such a sad loss for this Hoosier Nation, no question about it.
Absolutely. I know we've got to let you go. Next time we'll talk about Tom Allen moving on to Penn State. So we'll be seeing Tom Allen a little bit more as well.
Yeah, he's enriched himself pretty dramatically here of late.
He ain't doing bad. It ain't bad.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, here with us on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got lots more coming up here. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us next. We're back with more right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Morning, Dustin. You hear me?
Hey, John. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yep.
What do you think of Tom Allen going to Happy Valley?
I didn't even know it was a thing first. Sorry, I am just getting my bearings.
Okay.
Got back to.
So is that breaking news to you?
What's up?
So is that breaking news to you, what I just said?
Sort of. Good old John Sauber was texting me about it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That's going to work out well for them.
Might have froze up on us, Dustin. You may or may not even be able to hear me right now.
Looks like I punched him in the eye.
I know. It's like he's doing the what's that guy's name?
Rocky.
I'm just gonna remove him, and he can re-add. I'll text him to re-add him. Come back in. Let's see if he's back. You got us, Dustin? Maybe, maybe not. All right. I'll keep an eye on him for when he comes back. All of Bloomington and surrounding areas, Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, December 18. We're getting closer to Christmas, a week away. Speaking of which, John Boy, let the people know what the Christmas schedule is like.
Yeah, so on Monday, actually, I don't know if there will be a best of on Monday for Christmas Day. That will be up to the stations. But on Tuesday, December 26th, we will be posting a best of the show for those of you who are back to work the day after Christmas. And, we'll be looking forward to a little bit of Indiana Sports Beat. But after that, we'll be back to business as usual as we re-welcome in Dustin Dopirak. You with us now?
I am. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Dustin, a busy weekend, all kinds of things going on, especially in the state of the city of Indianapolis, with the state Indiana hosting Kansas, the Colts playing. Where do they send the Pacers off to? They just
everywhere. We were everywhere.
Had to send them on to an island somewhere.
Yes. No. There were no islands this time.
no islands.
I promise there was not an island. No, I mean, well, obviously the entire month has been a whirlwind because you go back. I mean, for me, you go back to like end of November, beginning of December was Miami. Then you came back and they played Boston in the quarters in the IST. And then we went to Vegas. I came back from Vegas. They didn't come back from Vegas. And then it was Detroit. It was Milwaukee. It was Washington. It was Minneapolis. So, I just got back in from Minnesota last night. I'm still, obviously, as you could probably tell, like finding my bearings. So, you guys informed me of the Tom Allen news. I had missed that. And so I just checked that on Twitter. So I guess that's the thing. But yeah, so they were everywhere. Obviously this was a time where the Pacers had to have a road trip. It was a tough road trip because, you extend the Vegas thing onto it. And they end up going 1-3. Brutal bad loss to the Wizards on Friday. The Wizards are 4-20. Pacers have no reason to lose that game, but just did not play well at all. Just bottomed out in the second quarter. And just looked like trash there. And so Minnesota, they had not really a chance against because Halliburton bruised his knee on Friday, so they were a couple men down. Andrew Nembhard's been out too, so they had to. McConnell, played fine. McConnell's good at being McConnell, but obviously you lose your most potent scorer in Halliburton, and you're going up against a Timberwolves team that has two guys that you really can't stop. Anthony Edwards had 37, Karl Anthony Towns had 40, and that's bad math basically for the Pacers right there. So that didn't go particularly well. But yeah, we were all over the place. So like when everything was happening in Indy, caught a little bit of it, caught kind of the end of Indiana, Kansas, caught some of the Colts game. I'll just say TJ McConnell was not happy with the result. I'll just put it that way. I won't talk about how what I thought about the result. But yeah. So yeah, a lot going on in Indy that we were not around for.
Yeah, and not only that, a lot going on in your realm of the world. Of course, the Colts lose to Pittsburgh, which I assume is if you had a team.
At times when I was a fan, that was who I was a fan of. Yes.
Yeah. Then we've got, of course, all that you just mentioned going on at Indianapolis with Purdue, number three Purdue hosting number 1 Arizona and getting a big win over them. Kansas at number 2 gets the win over Indiana. Kansas is not the number 2 team in the country. After watching them play, I mean, I guess every game is different, and
Mhm.
they'd have to play Purdue. But in watching them play Indiana, I'm like,
Yeah.
because Indiana's not the top 5 team,
No.
and they played. Of course, the environment had a lot to do with that.
It's a non-conference road game. It's probably, I'm presuming. I mean, obviously, I haven't kept up with academic schedules, but I'm presuming it's the week after. It's the Saturday after finals, right?
Right on.
So this is, I mean, obviously, because it's the Saturday after finals, they give, it's an opportunity to get everybody playing again, because during the week, this week, there's usually, no basketball, good basketball whatsoever. But, they target this as an opportunity as getting some big TV games. Obviously, you're like, college football schedule is not over, but you're now getting into the beginnings of the bowl games, and you're not, there is an opportunity for college basketball to attack the window to get some really good games on TV here. And so you are putting some teams out there right after final exams, and you don't know what you're going to get out of that. So, putting them on the road, like you're not going to get the best version of Kansas there. So, like, obviously they didn't play particularly well in the first half. There's not a ton of depth on that team, I don't think. That's kind of my view of them, but their best guys are really good. And obviously some other guys who've been around a while, certainly Hunter Dickinson, feels like he's been playing in college forever now. But between Dickinson, KJ Adams, Kevin McCullough, those are 3 really good players. McCullough's going to be a first round pick for sure, I think. Dickinson should be a pro, Adams should be a pro, those guys give you a shot. And so that gives them a shot, I think, long term to be a pretty good team. But I don't know if they're as good as, just looking at the score, looking at the way it seems that game was played, it definitely seemed like Purdue, Arizona, looked like, a legit game between top teams. And I don't know that Kansas played like they belong in that conversation. But it's December, and we have these conversations now, and in March look like fools. So
yeah, well, that's what we do. That's what we're here for. I just don't wear the clown suit.
Yeah, that's for most of us. Between the NCAA tournament and the World Series, we're really off now. Like we talking, in June in baseball, that's the best team in baseball, and we talking, college basketball in December. I think that's the best team in the country, and they make us look dumb. Football, I think generally as a, and the NBA, we have a sense of who it's going to be. With those 2 sports right now, we're just wrong. We just end up being dead wrong.
College basketball has become the most equalized.
Sure.
It's just unbelievable and fun, I guess, in a way, because it's different. We're not used to that. We're used to Indiana winning the games they're supposed to win, Kansas winning the games they're supposed to win, all that. We're kind of used to that. But now this has been turned on its head.
Yes.
Indiana State is their only losses at Alabama right now. It's great and fun to see this stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. I mean, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. First off, I mean, you have a single elimination tournament, which makes everything possible. You have the portal in basketball. Obviously the portal in football is its own thing. The portal in basketball allows everybody to get opportunities. Everybody gets re-recruited, and that's a big deal. But there are a lot of guys that there's just a lot of people that are good at this game. And there's only so many people who can play. Like you only put everybody has 5 starters, and that's it. And so it's like there are a lot of guys who get opportunities because of the portal that they would not ordinarily have, that can lift teams up. And there's other guys who will go to a mid-major and be really good, and then the big teams say, that guy can play for me now. I didn't think he played for me before. Now he can. So it does end up very equalized, and you see all the shifting and movement. And it gives a lot of guys a chance to play, and opportunities to, move up and improve and everything like that. And it constantly is changing the landscape, all the time. And so, you never know who's going to jump in there and be a team that matters. And so it's fascinating. It's wild. And yeah, you don't know at this point in December, you have no idea who the best team is going to end up being. You don't know who's going to be there on the, final floor. Like, we're guessing, but you you don't really know anymore.
No, but how cool of a day was it for the state of Indiana to have all of that going on, including the Colts? But in the realm of college basketball, you have the top 3 ranked teams in the country playing in 2 different cities, but within 60 miles. It just doesn't happen very often anywhere else.
Yeah. No, I mean, for one thing, it was probably too much. I mean, like honestly, the fact that Purdue and the Colts were tipping off at the same time within
that's the NFL's fault. They flex that game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, putting those within you can hit Gainbridge from Lucas Oil with a rock. I mean, we're talking about 0.2 miles or whatever it is, and you're right there. I mean, I can't imagine what Indy was like. Obviously, I wasn't here.
I wouldn't want to be there.
What's that?
I would not have wanted to be downtown. I can tell you that.
I would have been. I would have enjoyed that. Just the absolute mess of it all. I would have enjoyed that. I would have enjoyed taking that in. It'd have been weirder if I had to report on it. But all the same, I would have been quite entertained by the just massive humanity.
Revelry.
Yeah, going on down there. So I mean, I'm sure it was probably weird for Indy to really even take in, but no, I mean, just on a few levels, just to one in Indiana's case, it's like, hey, this was a purely scheduled game. This wasn't like some kind of event had something to do with this. This was Mike Woodson saying, I want to play big time teams and bring them into Assembly Hall. And he achieved it. That was, it was in a sense, as I've used this phrase before, a campaign promise by Mike Woodson. Not that he was actually campaigning, but it was like, these are things that Mike Woodson said he was going to do when he first got the job. It was go get, marquee games, marquee series, play blue blood programs, and be able to bring them into Assembly Hall. And so that was the first one that really showed, that he got. That was like, whoa, hey, Mike Woodson got Kansas. That's a deal. And it'd been years and years and years since Kansas had played in Assembly Hall. So it was a big deal for them to bring that game in and just, even though Indiana doesn't win that and that stings, they played it, they got it, so it was a case of here's Woodson scheduling this game. And they made it a game. They didn't get, run off their own floor or anything. And then, the Purdue Arizona game is really a continuation, is basically, Purdue saying, we don't want this concept of the Crossroads Classic to die completely. We think there should be some indie event in mid to late December, coming up to Christmas, and we're going to keep it going. And hey, we're going to get Arizona to come in here. What do you think? And so that's a deal in itself for Indy, but obviously for Purdue to win that game is a deal and a sign that Purdue is basically saying here, it's not going to happen this year. We're not going to be we are better. We are going to be a team that is going to win tournament games. You're not going to see us get knocked out in the first round by a 15 seed or 16 seed again. This is Purdue, I think, staking its claim that they are legit and they have a chance.
Yeah, and then now you look at Indiana getting Kentucky back on the schedule, but there's a gap in there that doesn't happen until 2025. So what do they do next year? Because Kansas, this was a 1-1 deal, and I remember listening to Bill Self in his pregame presser was asked about continuing the series if there's any interest. He says, "Oh, I wouldn't say interest. There's just a lot of games we're looking at putting together," and I get that. He doesn't want to play just Indiana, or they don't seem interested in starting a long-term deal, which is fine. They probably also know that Indiana wants some flexibility as well with getting Kentucky on the schedule and things like that. So what they do next year to replace that right now, I haven't looked, but they'll have to have something in between there because you need that Kansas, that Kentucky type atmosphere.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure they'll try to get something on there. Who knows what it's going to be? But they'll find a way to get somebody on the schedule, and I don't know if it'll be as big of a deal. They also do have Atlantis is next year, right?
Yes,
for Atlantis. So that's something. That's
it. Actually, that actually fills it because you're gonna end up playing somebody there.
You're getting real games there. I mean, that's if you're in Atlantis or you're in Miami, then you're getting or not Miami, Maui. Then you're getting 3 big ones. Thanksgiving week, one way or the other, basically, unless you end up, in Maui, if you get Chaminade, you end up not having 3 big games, but otherwise, you're getting, 3 important ones. So I think, there should be something else. I mean, it seems like Woodson is devoted to trying to make sure there is a big game in Assembly Hall, or some kind of home and home situation. Obviously, now that the ACC Big Ten Challenge is off the schedule, that puts you in a scenario where you have to kind of create your own type of deal. But I mean, you still have, I don't know what the deal is with the Gavitt anymore. But yeah, I think I imagine Mike Woodson will try to find a game, for that next year that he can circle and say, well, this is the big Assembly Hall game. It probably won't be a Kansas, but it'll be somebody.
We've got to take a break. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Back with 4 right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Coffee. I don't know where the coffee filters are. What a shame. Oh, kill me, why are you killing me? Damn it. Oh, man. I have found him.
Did you mean to join a second? Oh, here we go. There we go.
Oh.
I didn't realize you were frozen.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi must be bad today. I don't know what's wrong.
Who's your provider? Or is it Spectrum?
No, AT&T.
Okay.
That is the local one. I didn't realize Spectrum was a kind of Comcast deal. So I was like, I don't know who Spectrum is, so I'm not doing this. When I had the option. So I found out later. Maybe I should have, gone with them, but I got my phone's AT&T too, so my whole deal is AT&T right now.
There you go.
So
I tell you what, I wish I could have that fiber internet. I heard people who have that are pretty satisfied with it, but I don't think they offer it where I live.
I guess I don't have it. They've been asking. Somebody actually came by and asked us about that.
It's incredible. I do.
Dude.
It's incredible.
Did you freeze again, Dustin, or is it just, yep, he froze again. Man. Oh, well, he'll be back.
Man, no cream.
All right, here we go. Exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. I hope you're doing well. A week before Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Dustin, I know you haven't been keeping up with this because you've been busy, and we mentioned it earlier, but Tom Allen is going to be the defensive coordinator at Penn State, which a great move by James Franklin. Pat Kraft, the AD over there, former Indiana football player, former AD at Temple and someplace else, but has just done a phenomenal job. They've got a good thing going.
They do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, where was he? Loyola? No, he was somewhere in Chicago. But yeah, no, they do. I mean, obviously they have issues with beating Ohio State and Michigan, and there is general annoyance among the fan base at Penn State that they can't get that one done. But all the same, smart. Obviously smart move to grab at a guy like that. Manny Diaz was hired. Their previous defensive coordinator was hired to be the head coach at Duke, so that's why they had an opening in the first place. And so, obviously. That's not a bad scenario. Basically, when you're losing, your coordinators to head coaching jobs, it's at least saying that this is a, jumping point. They've had just phenomenal defensive talent. I thought Diaz did a really good job. The reason that they did not win those games was not because of defense. They had a really strong defensive unit. They just didn't get good offensive performances in the games when they needed them. So and they had to fire their offensive coordinator. So they, made one move in the other direction, but in the defensive move, it was because the guy moved up to be a head coach. So yeah, no, I mean, obviously it was saying, Franklin had to deal with Allen directly, as far as dealing with his scheme and everything, and that's saying, hey, I like what you guys do. I like your scheme. I like how you operate. I like who you are as a person. I think you'd be a good fit here, and so that's that. So obviously, certainly speaks well for Tom Allen, and especially when it's been somebody who you've gone up against, and I think that's a big sign of respect. I think in James Franklin's case, to say, like, I've dealt with you guys, I have seen you at your peak, I know what your X's and O's look like, I want those for me, and I've been winning on defense, and I think you can come in here and do that. Again, that's a heck of a sign of respect when they've been that good on that side of the ball, for him to say, who would be a good guy for this? Tom Allen. Just speaks well,
on his part, absolutely. And something I'm going to bring up when Dustin's able to come back. I just realized both Indiana's last two football coaches have both been hired as coordinators in the Big Ten Conference immediately after leaving Indiana. Tom Allen, of course, going to Penn State. Prior to that, the man he worked for, Kevin Wilson, having gone to Ohio State, then now the head coach at Tulsa. Dustin, I was just saying something I just thought of that is very unique. Indiana's last two football coaches were both hired in their next job as a coordinator by a Big Ten team, with Kevin Wilson having gone to Ohio State before he went to Tulsa.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, and on some level, it makes sense in terms of how they were hired. Both of them came as coordinator guys. I mean, like at the end of the day, I think I want to say somebody. I remember there was a story basically when Eddie George, when Tennessee State was on TV, and they were saying that George wasn't sure he wanted to do this, and he called Deion Sanders to talk about it and see if it's something he should do. And Deion told him, there's kind of your caretaker CEO coach and there's coordinator coaches. And basically Wilson and Allen were both, coordinator X's and O's guys who came up the ranks that way. And so what obviously the other coach in the league were like, on the side of the ball that you come from, you really get it. In terms of dealing with your stuff, in terms of planning for you, and knowing what you're doing as far as just drawing up an offense, or in Wilson's case, in a defense in Allen's case, you're really good. You might not have had it all together to win enough games that you needed to stick around in your job, but on the side of the ball that you really get, we know you're good, and you're good enough to coach us. And so that is, obviously it is a sign of respect, and in both of their cases, you see it. I mean, Wilson had some phenomenal offensive teams. Wilson had some trash defensive teams before he got Allen in the first place. But I mean, like that 13 offense could score with anybody. They just could not guard anybody. They couldn't stop a single soul. But the Sudfeld, Tevin Coleman, Cody Latimer era was pretty explosive. I caught 2013 season, and that was just, I mean, those guys were out of hand, and then they lose Latimer and whatever, but Coleman obviously goes off and runs for 2,000. So I mean, he was able to dial up passing oriented or running oriented systems to get guys crazy numbers. So obviously Ohio State knew what they were getting as far as that was concerned. And then on the flip side, again, Franklin got beat by them, and so knows, all right, like for as much as there's this discussion like, well, Mike Penix was the one that was carrying that. No, that defense carried that 2020 team. Penix was very good. He had an excellent year, but what made that group was just how all over the place they were.
I think they led the country in takeovers, didn't they?
Takeaways, yeah, exactly. And so that team, when it was functioning at its best, it just felt like players were all over the place. Just the system that he's got with the hybrid positions and the Husky and everything like that. When that group was really doing was operating at its highest level, like Allen had a really innovative defense when he had all his guys rolling. The last couple of years, they haven't been rolling, but that, when they had Johnson and they had Matthews and they had Mullen and they had McFadden and all those guys were just functioning at their highest level, that was a heck of a defense. So again, big sign of respect for, Franklin looking over and saying, what you do can fit with us and we won't have a problem. And that speaks very highly from Tom Allen.
Kurt Cignetti to Indiana, Tom Allen to Penn State, yet both teams get better.
I'd say so too. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It has worked out well. Obviously, a lot of big news over the weekend for Cignetti, keeping a lot of guys. That speaks very well as well. I mean, it's a tough deal when you have a coaching change. It's not easy to bring guys back once they're in the portal and once they start looking around and seeing, the places where the grass is greener. And so for you to be able to put forth a vision, obviously there's NIL packages and it does seem like there's been a rededication to that on some level, and that makes a difference, I'm sure, but it's not just that. You have to be able to give them a pathway to being a better player, including being an NFL player if they think that they belong there. So for him to be able to sell McCauley and sell Trent Howland, I think there's probably some other guys that I'm missing, is a significant deal.
Donovan McCauley.
McCauley's a big deal.
Those three that you just mentioned, though, those are huge key pieces to get back to that team.
Who's the third one? I saw Howland. I saw McCauley. Who did I miss? Who else did I mention?
John Boy.
Carter Smith, the offensive lineman.
Yeah, Carter Smith was significant. That's the one I didn't mention, but I did see that earlier in the week. Those are all significant deals. But McCauley especially is a huge deal because certainly he made that leap, I think, that Tom Allen saw from him, this year, basically when he moved over to wide receiver. I mean, he was, really believed in that move and said, he can be one of the best receivers we've ever had here, was Tom Allen's phrasing. And he said, so that was the deal. Like, I think there was a lot of talk about whether that was just an abandonment of him as a quarterback and McCauley abandoning Allen as a person who could, or Indiana's offensive guys as somebody who coached quarterbacks. But I think it was, they both really sold it as this is really the body that.
Yeah, usually this first year is a tough year, but I think that with 8 home games, it's not going to be that's not going to be the case for Indiana. I'm not.
The more that you bring back and the more new talent that you bring in, the easier it's going to be to kind of pick up from where you left off. And not that you want to have, like, obviously it's not going to be the same style of team as Tom Allen, but if you can take the players you already have and and make something better out of it with the coaching improvements that you've made, I mean, that's obviously going to make the difference between a successful first year and not.
What's up next for you, my friend?
Get to stick around here for a minute.
You get to take a little rest?
No, but
No.
I at least get to be here. It's restful to not be on a plane and to not be in a hotel. The hotel, the tough parts, the in between games in the hotels were fine. It's just you have a game, you have a lot you have to write, and you have to plane the next morning to try to get to the next town in case they practice. Those are the rough nights. That's what makes the trips, the road trips hard. Obviously, I can't complain about any of those things. I mean, as Rick Carlisle says all the time, the NBA life's the greatest life in the world. The
NBA, we love them, man. We love Dustin Dopirak from the ND Star, and we're always grateful that he's joined us. And we'll have him back again next week. Up next, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload, as we'll talk about the Boilers and taking on Arizona over the weekend. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Good morning, Travis.
Morning. I didn't know you were going to have me on today, but I'm always ready to go.
Well, one thing I kind of got confused, and I realized after you emailed me, but it worked out anyway, I guess. We had Casey on Friday. Normally we have you on Friday. And so in my head, I always alternate between you all. And then when you email me, I'm like, oh, shoot, this is usually Casey's day. But he came on Friday, which is why I emailed you instead. So my fault.
That's fine.
If that threw you off, that's my bad.
It's okay. Like I said, I'm born ready.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, that Saturday was the first time I've got to see Purdue play in person this year. That was a great game.
Oh, yeah. It is interesting how Purdue steps up for the big games, especially the big non-conference games. But they'll lose to teams they have no business losing to, whether it be in the Big Ten or, in the NCAA tournament.
See, the Big Ten I can kind of understand because a lot of those are true road games that they end up losing. And especially the last few years where teams just get up for them to come in.
Last year, though,
the tournament, I don't get it.
Didn't they lose to Rutgers at home last year early on in one of the early Big Ten? I could be wrong about that, but I feel like they did.
Yeah, usually the one time a year that they can be got at Mackey is that Big Ten game where the students are not there because they're all out on break.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this year it's Illinois, so I would not be shocked to see them lose that one, just because Illinois is looking pretty good right now. Maybe the only team that can really challenge them when Purdue's on.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Big Ten, I don't want to say they're weak because I think it's too early to fully determine how great your conference or how bad your conference is, but this may be the worst Big Ten in, I don't want to say my entire lifetime because that'd be hard to evaluate, but one of the weaker Big Tens.
Yeah, because they've gotten 8 or 9 teams into the tournament for I think like 5 years running, but before that they had a year I think where they only got 4 in. So I don't know if you're going to see it be that down, but Purdue's the only team looking like a true national contender right now. I mean, Michigan State finally woke up.
But they're going to have to win some more. They can't just beat Baylor and all of a sudden everything's fixed,
Right.
They didn't just beat Baylor.
Yeah. But you can almost say just Michigan State was due to beat somebody just because they hadn't beaten anybody that was good on their schedule. So, all right, here we go, guys. 15 seconds.
Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. We're a week out from Christmas. Hope everybody's got their shopping done. bringing you a little present today. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Big game for Purdue over the weekend as they hosted the #1 Arizona Wildcats. And #3 Purdue. With Kansas winning and Purdue winning, Purdue looks better to me. Do you think Purdue makes that jump? I think the poll's already come out, hasn't it?
They come out at 1:00. I can see Purdue jumping them because Purdue does have a win over the one team that has beaten Kansas, and the profile for Purdue is inarguable right now. I mean, if you look at the net ratings, I think they have 4 wins over top 10 teams, and just the fact that they ran through this gauntlet of a non-conference schedule without dropping a game, and I'm going to say they're going to run through it because they only have 2 non-conference games left, and it's Jacksonville and Eastern Kentucky in Mackey Arena. I'd be shocked if they lost either of those games. But going through what they went through with Xavier, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette, Alabama, Arizona, that's just an incredible run. I mean, how can you not put them #1 right now? Yeah, they've got the loss to Northwestern, but that was in overtime on the road in a game that, Boo Buie kind of just went crazy in the second half. Purdue struggled to shoot, and it was really a perfect storm of things. But I would not be shocked to see them pass Kansas and go back to #1 today.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It just depends on what the voters think, because going down to Bloomington and winning in that environment in a game that they trailed for 35 minutes, it was not an easy win, but a big win. That's it. That's going to be a nice little resume checker for Kansas to win that game on the road, and it would have been a great resume win for Indiana had they been able to get it done. But regardless, I don't know what they'll do, if they'll keep Kansas and just move them up, and we'll see chalk. But it'll be interesting to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Kansas and move them up just for chalk.
Yeah, I could see that too. I mean, it's 1-2 at this point in the season. I don't think it matters a whole lot. Purdue's put themselves in a position to earn another #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, unless they don't win the Big Ten, they're going to be a #1 seed. And they're arguably the heavy favorite right now, even with a loss already on their resume and everything. But the Purdue that you saw against Arizona, with Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith both on in the same game, both hitting some really, really big shots throughout. If they're on with Zach Edey having a quote-unquote quiet 22-9, and then I don't think you could overlook, he had a career-high 5 assists. How do you beat Purdue in that regard? How?
Well, it comes down to the guards. It always has. We talked about that last
absolutely.
year and this year, and Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith has not been playing badly, but Fletcher Lawyer has been the one that's kind of stepped up. Didn't he have a 27-point game before, not including the Kansas game?
Yeah, he's had a couple of games where he had 27. I think it was against Marquette. It was either Marquette or Tennessee out in Maui that he had a really, really good game. And then Braden Smith, he didn't have the assists that he usually has on Saturday, but most of the time he's either scoring, he's added that mid-range 10 to 15 foot floater into his game that is he gets to his spot and he can knock that down with regularity. And then Saturday he just hit some monster threes that kept Arizona at bay, and that was the difference when both of them are on. And then you got Lance Jones can still come in and hit a couple of big shots a game. That's 3 solid guards that Purdue can put around Edey. And you still haven't touched what Trey Kaufman-Wren or Mason Gillis or Caleb First could do on any given night. So it's just impressive to see. I still maintain they shoot over 35% from 3 for a game. They limit the turnovers to 15 or less. It's going to be incredibly hard to beat them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what we've always said. If Purdue can maintain a status where their guards are just giving them that kind of play. But I still think they need to get to win a national championship, somebody's going to have to remain consistent, whether it's Trey Kaufman-Renn or whomever, one of the other guys that filled those roles, Mason Gillis or Ethan Morton. As long as they're getting something from those guys, then that's good. That's enough to win virtually every game.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And Trey Kaufman-Renn only had 4 points on Saturday. I think First had a putback dunk at one point. That was his only basket. I don't think Gillis scored, but Gillis is always going to be – he's that prototypical Purdue guy. He may not score anything, but he'll have 3 times he dives on the floor to get a loose ball. He'll have a big offensive rebound here and just do a lot of those little things. He loves that role, and you can tell he is not afraid to play in that role. And then really Ethan Morton has kind of surprised me. He hasn't scored in a few games, but he's doing a good job defensively. He is also contributing with some rebounds. He's distributing the ball very well, and everybody's kind of playing a role right now, and it is fun to see. Really, this team is going 10 deep in its rotations, and all 10 of them are dangerous in one way or another.
Right now, we're in that point of the season where Indiana's next 3 games are what I call exhibition games. The next couple of games for Purdue are exhibition games. These post break, Christmas break, winter break games until everyone gets back into Big Ten play. Who does Purdue play first in the Big Ten?
When they go back, they go to Maryland, and then they host Illinois. And that Illinois game is interesting because it is the one game where during the Big Ten season where the students aren't there because it's Christmas break, and Purdue always seems to struggle a little bit in that game. Last year they lost to Rutgers. 2 years ago they lost to Wisconsin. They've lost to Iowa in that game before. They've lost to Minnesota. It's that one game that is just kind of it's a weird vibe, and Purdue just doesn't seem to be able to put teams away in that spot. And with Illinois looking like the quote-unquote second best team in the conference, that's a dangerous game, honestly. Illinois is going to be looking to that. If they could spring the upset, that gives them a big leg up to chase Purdue down, because they still have to host Purdue later in the season. And as you know, it's hard to win on the road in the Big Ten. So that game is kind of the one that I'm looking at as, all right, it'll be interesting to see if Purdue can hold serve there. And it might be the one weakness that they've got to keep the Big Ten race interesting.
Yeah, another team that is ironically looking kind of good this year for the Big Ten is Nebraska, a team that nobody talks about. And I'm not saying they're a top 10 team or anything, but it's a team that Purdue struggled with some last year. They almost lost to them, but they've been playing pretty well.
Yeah, you got Keisei Tominaga, who just can fill it up. He can almost do a Steph Curry, I'm going to hit 7 threes in a game type of game, and he gave Purdue some fits last year. So I'm not sure exactly where they are on the schedule. I think Purdue has to go to Nebraska, and they do have a pretty good home court advantage. But yeah, they're going to be paying for somebody in the Big Ten. And I don't know if you knew this, they are actually the only Power 5 program that has never won an NCAA tournament game.
Say that again, the only
Power 5 program that has never won an NCAA tournament game.
That's because Northwestern finally got a win because they hadn't made the tournament as of 5 years ago, I don't think.
Yeah, they've made it. Northwestern's made it twice now, and they won a game both times. So, Nebraska's looking at trying to get there and maybe get that monkey off of their backs, and this looks like a team that could do it, honestly.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting because the Big Ten is weird. We started the year thinking it was Purdue and Michigan State and Illinois, but right now I don't know who it is besides Purdue. Illinois is looking like they're one of the stronger teams. Michigan State looked bad, and then they do what they did the other day. My God, they were up, was it 45-15 or whatever the crazy score was? That was nuts.
That was shocking. That was shocking. And then I think you got Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got that really good win over Marquette now. So I think they're kind of slotting into that 3-4 spot. But yeah, you're right. The rest of the Big Ten is just, you don't know what you're going to get. I got to credit Indiana, honestly. Yeah, they don't have a really good win, but Indiana doesn't have a bad loss. They're beating who they should beat, and sometimes that's just good enough. And you can't argue with that. And maybe it's a way for a team to, quote, learn how to win, or whatever they say it is, one of those cliches. But they're not losing the games that they have no business losing. And so I got to give them credit for that, because not everyone in the conference can say that right now.
Yeah, it's something that they don't have the wins that they need, but they definitely do not have the losses that hurt. I think the losses hurt you more than the wins help you sometimes. As long as you have done, if you've taken care of business, then you're going to be on the right side of right. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of this year what the Big Ten can end up doing, because as of right now, we haven't started the season. Really, those two games don't mean a lot. But I think that they can come down and be very helpful. Like, that's going to be very helpful for Indiana to have gotten that win at Michigan this year. You have a road win. Whoo, that's like, whoo. You've got that off. That's a monkey off your back already, because that's something that gets counted against you. Like Maryland last year, they couldn't be beaten at home, but they couldn't win on the road if you paid them, but they are getting paid. But they couldn't win on the road for nothing. And so that is just very, very detrimental. And it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out, because Indiana is probably going to be a team that has a lot of ups and downs, where Purdue, everybody's going to be chasing Purdue. There's no question about that. I don't know if anyone has a chance of catching them as far as a Big Ten championship this year.
Well, and then you look at a team like Northwestern that did get Purdue. Arguably, Northwestern has the best win of any team in the country right now, because they beat Purdue. They also have one of the worst losses you can ask for after losing to Chicago State at home.
It's exactly what I'm talking about. What is it better to have won that game against Purdue, or is it worse to have lost that game against Chicago State? Because they were like a 25-point underdog.
And it's bizarre. It's almost like they cancel each other out, because, that's going to be an anchor on their profile, but I don't think it's overwhelming enough to keep them out as long as that's the only bad loss they have. I mean, Purdue made the tournament a few years ago when they lost home games to Gardner-Webb and North Florida, but they recovered and they got the job done in the Big Ten season. And that's going to be what a lot of these teams are going to have to do. Like Northwestern, Michigan has that loss to Long Beach State. And there's just some other bad losses there, but one loss is not going to kill you as long as you show over the body of work that you do really, really well. And, Northwestern's still right there, and that win over Purdue is going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of keep forgetting about them, because there's just too many teams to keep track of in this, but there's that. Swing around and talk a little bit of football, and I know this doesn't have a lot to do with you, but just the interesting fact: Tom Allen going to Penn State to be the defensive coordinator. But it's not as strange as it sounds, because it dawned on me a minute ago. Indiana's last two coaches were, after leaving Indiana, were hired as coordinators in the Big Ten. Kevin Wilson went to Ohio State as their offensive coordinator, and now Tom Allen going to Penn State as their defensive coordinator. Of course, that has not, I think, been officially announced yet, but Brian, as Brian points out, Leo the Lion, I guess, will that be the new call over at Penn State, Leo the Lion?
That'll be interesting to see. And some of these guys, they're just better coordinators than they are head coaches. I think we've seen that before. And, obviously Penn State saw something in him to replace Manny Diaz with him. And Manny Diaz wasn't horrible, but, Penn State is just solidly in that number 3 spot in the Big Ten, like we've discussed before. They're clearly ahead of everybody else. They're clearly not on the same level as Ohio State and Michigan. So what do you got to lose at this point? It's not like you don't know what you have to do. You have to find a way to beat those two And I don't think that changes with the 4 teams being added next year. I think of the 4 coming in, Oregon is probably the best team, but honestly, none of the other 3 are that scary unless, Washington, I want to see them sustain what they've got without Michael Penix. Obviously, he has had just a phenomenal season, but they've struggled to just stay at that incredibly high level. And it'll be interesting to see if they can do that next year or not.
And you saw this year with what Purdue went through and the change of coaches. They lost a lot of players in the portal because of that. Some of them went to Louisville. But a lot of times when you have that change, it's hard. For Indiana, the hiring of Kurt Cignetti, I'm not getting the feeling that they're going to have the drop-off that most would have expected. Of course, you don't have to drop off too far when you finish where Indiana finished last year. So there's a little more of a road upwards. But Cignetti seems to be doing a hell of a job of not only maintaining some of the key components that we talked about earlier with guys like receiver Donovan McCulley, Carter, daggone it, losing his name, but the lineman and running back. Go ahead, John, you've got it.
No, it's just Carter Smith.
Carter Smith, yeah, but the running back, but they're bringing in other guys as well. I don't know that they're going to have a drop-off, and they've got 8 home games next year. I think Indiana is going to go the opposite way, and I don't mean for this to sound homerish because I know it kind of does, and I hate that. But I think that they end up in a bowl game next year.
And that's the nature of the portal. Indiana scheduled it so they can get those 3 non-conference wins. And like you've said before, that's what you want to do if you're Indiana. You want those 3 wins so you get to Big Ten play and you only got to get 3 there in order to get to a bowl game. And they got 2 this past season. So they're not that far off. I know they had – how many losses did they have by a single possession in Big Ten play? I know they lost to Purdue. They lost to Penn State, they lost to Michigan State. Those are games Indiana could have won. So, Purdue is kind of in the same boat. They had a number of games they could have won. Fresno State is one. They had Iowa they could have beaten. Everybody could have beaten Iowa this year. Northwestern was a game that they could have won. So it really comes down to what are you getting out of the portal right now versus what you're losing. And so far, Ryan Walters has hit the portal hard for offensive linemen. I think he's gotten 3 offensive linemen in the portal, and then 2 JUCO offensive linemen that have already committed to come in. So he's aiming hard at the trenches, and I think that's what you got to do. That's where you build a team.
Absolutely. Well, man, what's up next for you?
Mostly just taking it easy for Christmas break this week. I know we got Purdue against Jacksonville on Thursday night. That is the final pre-Christmas game. But like you said, these are the exhibition games. Purdue has Eastern Kentucky next week. I'm going to be watching a lot of high school games. I managed on Saturday to see Purdue beat Arizona, and then I ran up to Carmel to see my beloved Kokomo Wildcats beat Carmel with Flory Badunga, who, if you haven't had a chance to see him play in person, go do it. He is the real deal. He is a phenomenal player. He's got probably the leader for Mr. Basketball, and just a joy to watch, even if he's going to be going to Kansas next year. Great story from the kid, too. I've talked to him a couple of times. Very humble, and just the way that he has flourished in this since moving to Kokomo, of all places. He was an unknown 2 years ago, and now he's a top 10 recruit. So go see him. Go see Kokomo if you get a chance. They'll be hosting their Phil Cox Holiday Tournament this coming weekend with 8 teams going up there, and that's a lot of fun. A lot of basketball in Memorial Gym, which is the greatest place on earth to watch basketball.
There you go, man. Unbiased opinion there from Travis Miller, Boiler Upload. We appreciate you, my friend. Have a great week, and Merry Christmas, by the way. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas to you.
Happy holidays. All right, back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the
Was that a dog or was that you?
That was me.
It sounded like a howl.
I don't have any creamer. That upsets me.
Oh, yeah.
No sweetener. I gotta put my finger in there. Da-da-da. Da-da. Da-da-da. 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 Where would one put sweetener? Damn. Yeah. Pretty good run there.
Do what?
That's a pretty good run there. Quick stretch that out.
Oh, yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Eso está perfect. Sound like I bit the dust, huh?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what happened.
I was just stretching. But Tom Allen's not been announced as the DC yet. I haven't seen.
I don't know if it's official, but I did like On3 is reported and stuff, like some big names and stuff like that. So
everybody's reporting it. I think. I mean,
all right, here we go.
The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday of a holiday week, I guess you would call it. As we're heading towards Christmas on Monday, New Year's the following week after that. John, I know that you told the good folks that we're taking Christmas Day off, which is a shocker to most people, including John. What about the following week on New Year's Day?
I do think we'll be around for that, unless you change your mind. But that's the plan for now is to do a show on New Year's Day.
Look at us, busy little beavers, just churning it up. And it was a busy weekend. If you did not get the chance to go to Assembly Hall for that game against Kansas, even though the Indiana didn't win, it was a hell of an environment. It was fun. It was just to be in that environment was fun. But man, Indiana could have won that game. Part of that is the youth. I mean, you have to look at Kansas as they're a much more veteran team with Hunter Dickinson in the middle there. He never got frazzled. And that's the thing. If you're going to get frazzled, that was the time and the place to do it, because when they were making pregame and player introductions, by the time they got to Hunter Dickinson, he was the last guy being announced out. Jeremy Gray, who handles the PA duties at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, I don't know if he got maybe one word out, like and starting at center or forward, whatever he was going to say. That was the only thing I could hear, and it was just raining down boos for Hunter Dickinson. And then he shot an air ball, but he didn't get rattled. And to not get rattled in that environment when you've got people who just, like he said afterwards, he said, man, I could probably go out there and save a baby and they'd still boo me.
I think the weird thing about Hunter Dickinson is that, I mean, I guess you can fake whatever you want, but I think he likes the hate, especially when he comes to Assembly Hall. I think he embraces it, and I think he thrives off of it. And it was one of those things where I was sitting watching the game. I'm like, I almost feel like it would be harder on him if the crowd just shut up for him specifically, because he feeds off of that negative energy. And I know it's weird because not every player responds like that, but he is the perfect villain role for an elite player to be in Assembly Hall like that.
I could see him feeding off of it. Nothing fazed him. The booing didn't faze him. The air ball didn't faze him. He just kept playing and plotting and playing along. And Kansas had a great game plan. Their game plan was to not let Khalil Ware beat them, and he didn't. Part of which was able to give Trey Galloway the game of his career, IU career. He was able just to storm the paint all day long, but I think a big part of that was because they were focused on Khalil Ware. I mean, anytime he touched the ball, there were two guys on him immediately and forced him into a lot of some early turnovers. Indiana, man, they just had some turnovers and missed free throws. I know everybody likes to complain about officiating and this and that. Man, you don't have to look further than Indiana, what they could have done to help themselves.
No, you're dead right. I said the exact same thing at the end of the game on Twitter. And I think the biggest sequence that I can recall, especially with the turnovers, it was towards the beginning of the second half. Indiana was trying to extend their lead, and Khalil Ware someone got a steal for Indiana. Khalil had a wide open layup, and he bounced the ball off of his knee. And before that, Indiana had turned the ball over in the previous possession as well. So simple things like that. I don't know what the free throw percentage was. I know it wasn't
like 68%. Like 68%.
Yeah, and so those little things right there, as bad as the officiating could have been, if you can't help yourself win the game, then you don't have any reason to blame the officials.
Yeah, when you lose by 4, and when you're playing a team of that stature, that's that good, you can't make those kinds of mistakes and win. You can't miss free throws, free opportunities, and win. And not calling people out. I know there was a front end of a 1-and-1 that was missed late. There were opportunities. Even Mackenzie Mbako, Mr. Free Throw, had hit 23 straight, I think. He gets an and one, but can't convert on the and one, missing his first free throw of the year. But just a couple free throws and 2 less turnovers. There you go. There's the game right there. And you're talking about some small things that were the difference in winning and losing there, and that it would have been. Indiana could have come out of there with a win, but they didn't. And they have to do the things that they have to do to win those kinds of games. And it's not going to get easier now because your games are going to be on the road or at home in the Big Ten. So half of your games are going to be in hostile environments, and they're going to have to find a way to. I think they're going to have to steal another road win. I know they've got one against Michigan, but they're going to have to steal another one at least, if not 2, to solidify not being a play-in team or even in danger of not making the tournament this year. But I'm not saying that. I'm just saying to solidify, to not put yourself in that position. They need to go out and steal another road win or two along the way. And you cannot lose at home to teams that you're not supposed to lose to. And really, you really just can't afford to lose at home. I mean, I know Purdue's going to come in, and that's going to be a tough one, and that's not going to be one that kills you. But you're going to have a Michigan State team coming here at the end of the year. You don't go play at Michigan State, so you get them one time, and it's at Simon Scott Assembly Hall to end the season. There could be a lot riding on that, most importantly because everybody's looking at that time. That's kind of stands out more, and we'll see where Indiana is at that point. We'll see if they have Xavier Johnson back. Everyone keeps asking about Ja'Kai Newton. I'm telling you, do not plan on seeing Ja'Kai Newton this season. Just write it off. I just do not believe he's going to play. And that is a loss for Indiana because he is probably someone that could have helped them right where they need that help, especially right now just with depth at the guard position. So, but unfortunately, I do not expect to see him playing this season. When Xavier's coming back yet, I don't know. I'm going to guess that we talked about this Saturday with Todd, that if he was not 100% for the Kansas game and able to go, then you're not going to play him. And then there's no reason to play him in any of these next 3 games that are basically exhibition games. Let him rest more, let him heal more, get to the point to where he is ready for Big Ten play, which I would guess that is what Mike Woodson is doing, just making sure they have him for the important run in the Big Ten Conference that is quickly around the corner for Indiana. And of course, we've got looking forward to talking about Tom Allen going to Penn State, how interesting that is going to be. Indiana does not play Penn State next year, so you don't have to worry about him coming back here and beating Indiana or playing that game. So, but that'll happen soon enough. I'll have to look on the schedule to see when that is scheduled.
I mean, they don't have the schedule released past next year, so there isn't a current planned date for. That's
not true. They've got it scheduled out for like the next 7 years.
Whenever they added Washington and Oregon, they scrapped all of that. So they don't have. I promise they're not out there because I've looked.
Indiana plays Washington at home next year.
Yeah, they have next year's, but they don't have the following years after that. They have some non-conference games scheduled, but they don't have the
they
full
scheduled them out. I thought that they scheduled them out with those 4 teams.
No, so whenever they announced USC and UCLA initially, they did 2 years worth of conference schedules. And then they brought in Oregon and Washington and scrapped both of those, obviously. And then when they released the 2024 schedules, that's all they did. And I'm looking at it right now. They don't have anything released past 2024.
Okay. There were so many of them. They released like 7 years worth, or 5 years worth.
They did for the long, right before all of the conference.
I'm telling you, I'll have to get on there after the show and find it, but I'm virtually positive now it is scheduled out because they had to make sure that each team was not playing.
That has nothing to do with it. I'm looking at it right now. If you think I'm lying, you can check. But the schedules are not released.
You're lying. I just think that it's somewhere else. But maybe you're right. And
because it used to be what you're talking about was the case before they made all of these additions.
Well, we'll look at that. But I do know Washington's coming in next year. So we do have that to look forward to. Another former coordinator coming in to play Indiana. So. You will have that, but you're going to see more and more of that as with the Big Ten, the growth of the Big Ten. You're going to see coaches that have left Indiana and moved on. Penn State is their athletics director is Pat Kraft, and has just done an unbelievable job there. And he is an incredible AD, former Indiana football player, and former AD at Temple. and daggone it, where was the other school? I cannot think of it. But he has had a good run, and probably a big reason why Tom Allen was brought in. He saw the job that he did and the kind of person that Tom Allen is. So that was an easy call for them. Tom Allen did a good job as DC under Kevin Wilson and started making his bones in the SEC. He'll do great. Can you imagine the talent he'll have at Penn State now that he did not have at Indiana? And so but I just wonder, are they going to have Leo the Lion, like whoever made that comment earlier? That's kind of funny. Kind of funny. I do think that is hilarious. But we've got so much more coming up tomorrow on the schedule, John Boy. What do we have?
Tomorrow we will get a visit from Mike DeCourcy. We'll hear from Chronic Hoosier, and we may hear from Mike Nizelek as well. So good Tuesday lineup per usual.
And again, Indiana, the state of Indiana losing Eric Montross, man. What another loss right on the heels of George McGinnis. And it seems like that happens a lot. Very unfortunate. Two guys that are separated by generations, but both left their mark on the state of Indiana, both having been state champions here. And was Eric Montross Mr. Basketball? Surely it was. I can't imagine him not being, but you have that as well if that was the case. But both of them just a winner in titles, but the biggest thing, they were both incredibly nice, great people. And it is just such a sad thing. I talked to Eric the last time at Indiana, or that North Carolina came to play I think it was that last year? When he was with the radio crew, and we had hoped to get him on the show, but just a sad day for him and his family, and we were thinking about them. Our prayers to the Montross family. Todd Leary played with him, was close with him, and I know that that's a tough loss for Todd. Those guys won a state title together at Lawrence North. That's the same year that Pat Graham and Floyd Central was in the Final Four that same season. But all those guys know each other, and having lost guys like Eric Montross, like Eric Anderson at a much too early of an age, it's sad anytime you see that. And I know that Eric had a family, so it's just man, rough. Sports can be rough as well when those people who have gone to great heights, when you lose those at an early age, it's hard because you just enjoy them, and you can, especially if they're still involved in the game. With how Eric was, we didn't get to hear him. He was on the broadcast for North Carolina, but I'm sure that's a huge loss what a huge loss it is to that community, the North Carolina program and their fans, because they're so used to him being on the radio. That's someone that they listen to, that they really turn to, like a guy that brought success there. You get used to having those people in your life. You get used to being able to hear those people and take it for granted. Now, I'm not going to say take it for granted, but we're very fortunate to have Don Fischer with us and to still be with us on the show each week. But man, you kind of, I don't want to say take it for granted, but you just get used to having those people around. And we find out quickly sometimes that this is not a forever deal. And sometimes it's shorter for some than others, but every time it's sad. So hate to think about that. And thoughts again to his family and the whole North Carolina program in regards to that. Very happy for Tom Allen, where he's going to be headed to Happy Valley. I wonder what that does as far as alleviating Indiana of some of its financial responsibility. Of what
I read somewhere, since you mentioned that it's not going to affect it in any way. I think Zach Osterman put something out about it whenever it was first announced yesterday. Even though it's still unofficial, it won't have anything to do with It won't take away from his buyout that Indiana has to take care of.
And I was kind of thinking that because they did a negotiated buyout.
Yes.
So either Penn State is getting him for less money or Tom's just rolling in it. He's got another $15 million coming Indiana. So, but congratulations to him, and we'll talk more about that as we go forward. Looking forward to tomorrow's lineup with Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier, and Mike Nizelak, and of course you guys. But appreciate Greg Rakestraw from ISC Sports Network, of course Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload for being with us today. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here, but we're grateful for you and thankful as well. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.